What is good, YouTube, and welcome back to MKE MANIACI. And today we got What Culture's Wrestling's 10 WWE stars who turned into everything they hated, everything they despised, or in the words of Chris Jericho from 2008, hypocrites. Hypocrites. So listen, we ain't doing no more talking. We're going to check out 10 of them. Let's get it.
Wrestlers are often full of crap. That could be a commentary exclusively on the business behind the scenes, to be honest. But this video mixes that with on-screen babbling to examine times WWE stars were definitely full of it. They went from making grand promises about their own integrity to doing the exact opposite of what they preached a short while later. In effect, they turned into everything they once hated. Naturally, this is a sweet way to guarantee heel heat when someone is turning, but it's still interesting to look back on now. So with all that in mind, I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE stars who turned into everything they hated. Number 10, John Cena.
I knew it was going to... Alright, I knew
Let's
it.
start with an obvious one.
I knew it.
John Cena famously ripped The Rock for buggering off to Hollywood and leaving WWE behind.
I got something to say about this one.
That criticism even became the crux of their 2011 to 2012 feud and led to back-to-back WrestleMania matches against one another. Meanwhile, old JC claimed he'd never do the same thing. He has though. WWE is the most part-time of part-time gigs for Cena these days. Recently, he's been talking about the physical toll years of full-time work had on his body, and revealed he wouldn't be able to keep up the same schedule anyway. That's fair enough, but he still went back on his word, didn't he? Cena has cracked into the film business and looks set to stay there for the rest of his days. Somewhere, a certain Dwayne Johnson must be rolling his eyes at all of this. Nah, he's probably just happy for good old John. Number 9.
Now, John Cena. This situation right here, yes, John Cena did leave the WWE for Hollywood. Yes, we can't deny that. And it is in a very similar fashion that The Rock did, but the difference here is The Rock left. I mean, he had his first, the Scorpion King started filming, what, 2000, 2001. I think he officially kind of, was out the door 03, 02, 03. The Rock was only really a big star. People seem to forget The Rock was The Rock for only like 5 years. For only 5 years. John Cena, when he got his push back in 2005, when he became megastar John Cena, he did that from 05 until about 2017, 2018, full time. That's a long time. The Rock was the man for only 5 years. That's like going back to 2018. Like, let's say who became like a huge star in 2018. I don't know. Let's say they made like a huge star in 2018, like gave this person a huge push, and then now here we are from WrestleMania 34 to right now, they just leave. Like, that's how Rock wasn't around that long before he went to Hollywood. John Cena stayed on the road constantly for over a decade plus, going crazy before he went to Hollywood. So there's a difference. There's a huge difference. Cena is a lot older now. The Rock was pretty young. He was still in his prime when he left. But that could still be argued, I guess. That's just my opinion.
Be rolling his eyes at all of this. Nah, he's probably just happy for good old John. Number 9, Bayley. Bayley burst onto the WWE scene via NXT as a cute and huggable girl next door sort of character. She even maintained that persona upon jumping up to the main roster. But a 2019 heel turn changed everything. Suddenly, Bayley was a smiling hugger no more. She morphed into a snide bully who cackled at other folks' misfortune and enjoyed holding them back. That eventually led to a 2-woman power trip alliance alongside Sasha Banks that carried WWE's female ranks through much of the pandemic. It was great, but it was a complete departure for Bayley. The bullying has continued as part of Damage Control, and it could be tough to ever revisit the huggable days of old again. Bayley 2K23 is exactly the kind of menace Bayley from 2015 would have hated.
Definitely. And I want to ask y'all, which Bayley do y'all like better? Y'all like the hugger Bayley, the happy-go-lucky Bayley, or do y'all like this new edgy Damage Control type of Bayley? I personally think Damage Control Bayley, Bayley is such a professional. She can hit She can play the role so well. So well, so believable. She ripping up the crowd signs. She's like, I don't care what y'all gotta say about me. I hate you all anyway type of attitude. I rock with it. It was only a matter of time before this got old. And this got old very fast. Very, very fast.
In fact, she'd probably have delighted in taking this current guys down a peg or two. I'm still not over the Bayley Buddy massacre. Number 8, The Undertaker. It was seriously depressing to see The Undertaker looking glum after stinking performances versus everyone from Bill Goldberg to Roman Reigns. The Goldberg match in particular was a harrowing reminder of Taker's physical limitations. He'd pushed his body as far as it was willing to go. Nobody enjoyed seeing him stink up the joint. The Undertaker was always a loyal soldier to the WWF/WWE cause, and he was rightly proud of the way he tweaked that slow-moving original character to start becoming legit great inside of the squared circle. Bouts versus Shawn Michaels will live forever, and so will matches against the likes of Bret Hart, Mick Foley, and others. Then there's the latter portion of his iconic career. It's one Matt Calloway clearly hates looking back on. That final batch of matches broke his heart, and made him realize it was finally time to hang up the boots, trench coat, hat, and eyeliner for good. Number 7.
I felt bad for the Undertaker. You know, Undertaker, the most respected guy in the entire world of professional wrestling. It don't matter AEW, WWE, ROH, TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's no guy in the world of professional wrestling that has more respect than the Undertaker. This is wrestling's godfather right here. This is the final boss right here. And I completely agree with this. You know, Undertaker had so much he still has so much respect for this industry. So much. And I feel like, you know, his performance these last, you know, I'll even say like the last 10 years, you know, have been, it's been kind of lackluster. And all I'm going to say is the thing with the Undertaker and his character and his presence, his aura about him, was that as fans, and I know even in WWE's case, you know, as writers, you don't want to imagine the WWE without the Undertaker. And that's like the biggest thing. You don't want to imagine the WWE without the Undertaker. So it's like, man, you know, we got to have Taker at WrestleMania, or we got to have Taker at SummerSlam Survivor Series. We got to do this. We got to have Taker here because it's just his name. But it's like at some point in time, you know, we kind of got to, you know, be like, all right, you know, I personally believe WrestleMania 26 would have been a perfect time for Undertaker to go out alongside Shawn Michaels. They could have added a stipulation like it would have been both of their last matches. Give two legends one last main event. They both would have went out together at WrestleMania 26. That's how I personally would have done it. Because then, you know, I'm not saying that his recent matches ruined his reputation. Like, Undertaker's reputation is forever solid. He's valid. You know, but I personally would have had him like stop in 2010, honestly.
It was finally time to hang up the boots, trench coat, hat, and eyeliner for good. Number 7, Bret Hart. Prime Bret Hart was all about two things: having excellent pro wrestling matches and doing whatever he needed to do for the company. Yeah. Then the infamous Montreal Screwjob came along, broke Bret Hart, and sent him spiraling off into an increasingly messy WCW scene for a miserable few years. Montreal kicked the hell out of Bret's love for the business. Is it totally responsible for what happened next in WCW though? That's still up for debate, really. Listen to Eric Bischoff and you'll get a different side of the story. According to him, Hart simply wasn't all that interested anymore and started collecting paydays for very little. Wrestling was no longer his labor of love. That would have turned Bret circa 1994's stomach. In fact, it would have made Hart circa early 1997 feel nauseous too. His general disinterest reeked, and it conjured up parallels to guys like the Ultimate Warrior who had been alarmingly apathetic towards wrestling in the past. Number 6.
I think with Bret Hart's case, it was the Montreal Screwjob. I think it's not his fault. If he was like that, according to Bischoff, it's not his fault. You know, Bret is another guy that has so much respect for this industry. And it's like, you know, you do all this, you put in all this time, you take the falls, you take the losses, you know, you put people over, and then this is how I get repaid. So it's almost like, you know, like let's say y'all working a job, and you know, you do all this stuff, and you know, you want the supervisor to notice that you working extra hard, you working twice as hard, and then they just screw you over, they lay you off, or they give somebody else, you know, the higher position that you wanted. And it's like, you're gonna be like, you know what, forget it. Then I'm just gonna BS my way around it then. That's what I'm gonna do. They don't care. They don't notice it anyway. So I don't blame Bret Hart if that is the case for him, But yeah, I think the Montreal Screwjob is what really changed him.
Like the Ultimate Warrior, who had been alarmingly apathetic towards wrestling in the past. Number 6, the Hardy Boys. Matt and Jeff Hardy were once the walking, talking definition of a young, hip tag team who stood out from the crowd as fresh and interesting. Their outfits were different to other tags at the time, and their big bumping style was only matched by the likes of Edge and Christian or the Dudleys. Fast forward to 2023, and the repeat button has been worn out a bit. You can't be young and hip forever. Recently, the Hardys revealed plans to go after the AEW Tag Team titles, which means they'll likely trample all over a bunch of fresh talent to get there. Would they have been thrilled by the thought of that back in 1999 to 2000?
Nope.
No, absolutely not. In other words, the Hardys have become the kind of duo Matt and Jeff wanted to see step aside back at the turn of the millennium. They'd have been pissed, for example, if the Legion of Doom had returned in 2000 to march in front of them and wrestle for the top prizes. But that could be an all-elite reality soon enough. Number 5, Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch earned favourable comparisons to Stone Cold when she launched her ultra-successful and no-frills The Man Guys. People lapped up how straightforward and badass Becky was, and it seemed inconceivable that she'd ever need to change again. Cue big-time Bex and cue Lynch turning into the kind of showboating git she'd have torn strips off of back in 2019. Look at that image. Who springs to mind? Lady Gaga is an obvious one, but it could really be any kind of diva-esque pop star. In WWE land, it could also be someone like a certain Charlotte Flair. You know, the same Charlotte Flair one Bex turned her nose up at? Big Time Bex was the antithesis of the man. Whilst that character was all about rebellion and refusing to be overlooked any longer, the pop star reinvention was more about rubbing people's faces in Becky's own brilliance. And in the end, it was a quite radical departure from the man's simple genius during those brilliant 2018 to 2019 days. Number 4.
I never really noticed the difference, or maybe I just wasn't really paying attention like that between the Man and Big Time Bex. I always kind of considered it being kind of one and the same. But now after seeing, watching that and hearing what he said, it's actually a really good point. It's a very big difference with those two. The Man was more of, that was a revolutionary character. Like, we're going to look back 10, 15, 20 years from now, and we're going to look at, okay, Becky Lynch doing that was one of the instrumental pieces in women's wrestling, showing that the women can do anything that the guys can do, even just as better, whether it comes down to promos, matches, main events. And Big Time Bex, it was the flashiness, like, the big fur coat, the fashion, okay. I don't know where I was going with that. I just had to kind of get that out there.
Or Chris Jericho.
Hypocrite.
Cast your minds back to Chris Jericho's brutal promos about childhood hero Shawn Michaels throughout 2003. The then Y2J was appalled at Shawn for thinking of himself rather than the future of wrestling. And he also took digs at his credibility / overall behavior. WWE didn't go as far as to have Jericho tell HBK his time was up in ring, but they did toy with it, and there was a definite air of your yesterday's news about the whole thing. Chris wanted Shawn to step aside so he could bask in the spotlight and show what he was capable of. But Jericho is now Michaels, albeit in AEW. He's that older wrestler.
The craziest thing is, Jericho is way older than Shawn Michaels was in 03 today.
Still has star power coming out of his ears, which makes it challenging for the promotion to move away from him. Does Jericho elevate younger stars? Sure, but so did Michaels. Also, it's kind of awkward that Jericho is now one of those legacy stars he'd have likely scoffed at back during the WCW days. Number 3, Triple H. This is a fun and light-hearted one, eh? Triple H went from leading a group of literal degenerates in DX to leading the Executive. Before that, he'd also temporarily ditched the whole Degeneration X thing to become a member of the corporation, which was a drastic switch for someone who was supposed to be chief rabble-rouser. That brief stint in the corporation was a teaser for things to come just over a decade later. Tripp stood alongside Stephanie McMahon to do their best Vince impressions, and they dismissed fresh faces like Daniel Bryan as a B-plus player. It was a watered-down version of Vince versus Steve Austin, basically. In short, Hunter became the Mr. McMahon character he'd once poked fun at in DX. He cut his long hair, wore smart suits, and carried himself like a snooty businessman who pretended to have the audience's best interest at heart while simultaneously serving his own ego. Who does that sound like? Number 2, Steve Austin. Steve Austin is remembered today as the ultimate rebel / hell-raising badass. His hijinks opposite Vince McMahon are the stuff of legend, and millions of people get borderline teary when reminiscing about the glory days of Attitude. There's also a reason why folks don't hold Austin's heel turn and alliance with Vince in the same regard. It's even something Steve considers a mistake looking back. Austin went from taking pleasure in upsetting the boss and his corporate chosen ones to unthinkable corporate suck-up stooge in 2001. Almost overnight, Stone Cold stripped away everything that made him a fan favorite. He became cowardly instead of fearless, comedic instead of straight-laced, and desperate instead of proud. Hell yeah, more like hell no, am I right? Number 1.
And that's why I feel like, with Stone Cold Steve Austin, a lot of us, as cool as his heel song was, his heel theme was actually very cool. That, that like, that was hard. But his heel turn, it was not it. Austin was the guy that the fans, like, we related to Austin. I was just a little itty bitty kid at that time. I was 6, 7 years old. But it's like, Austin was just, he was that guy that a lot of people could relate to, like, oh man, we hate our boss too. But now it's like, you aligning with the boss? What are you, the boss's bitch now? Like, come on.
But instead of proud. Hell yeah, more like hell no, am I right? Number 1, Roman Reigns. 3 things are certain in life: death, taxes, and WWE booking Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar until the end of time. That's a feud the company has come back to over and over again.
I'm telling you, I had a dream that this match was made official for SummerSlam.
And they'll still probably do it one more time in the future. However, maybe things will be different next time. After all, Roman has turned into everything he hated about Brock. Reigns used to criticize Lesnar for being a part-time world champion who hid behind others. Fast forward to now, and that's precisely what he himself is. Hell, he even has Paul Heyman in tow. Actually, Roman is worse than Brock because he has a faction of family members who do his bidding. It's fun to look back on Reigns' tut-tutting promos about Lesnar now, then realize that he's turned into the same kind of part-time elitist. That's not a dig because Roman has been freaking awesome as the tribal chief, but it is worth mentioning, and it will likely be mentioned a few more times as the reign continues forever. And that's our list. The
thing with Roman Reigns, though, is that this is, you could even look at and compare this to John Cena and The Rock as well. This ain't the first time something like this happened. This won't be the last time. There's going to be, whoever that next big guy is after Roman Reigns, they're eventually going to become part-time. Whoever after them, they're eventually going to become part-time. Do I like Roman being part-time? No, I absolutely despise it. I think if you're a world champion, you need to be there every single week. You are the one that people are buying tickets to see. I get, when he comes back, it's like an attraction. It's a big event. They could sell it that way, but the champion should always be there. And I do remember, Roman going off on Brock for being a part-timer, and Roman has been champion for way longer than Brock was Universal Champion. And, he's been a part-timer for a very long time too, man. So, I don't know. I mean, it kind of is like, what's the saying? The kettle calling the pot black or the pot calling the kettle black? I don't know. But y'all let me know y'all thoughts and opinions on this. 10 WWE stars who turned into everything they hated from What Culture Wrestling. Link down below in the description for y'all to check this video out in its entirety with no interruptions. Y'all new to the channel, y'all rock with me. Want more wrestling related content? Hit that subscribe button for me. And until the next video, I will see y'all then. Thank you for watching MKE MANIACI. I'm out.